All right. Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on what time zone you are zooming in with us. Hey, listen, my name is Kai Deering, and this is On the Fly with Kai, where we come to you every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and all time zones in between to really bring you some tips, tricks, and hacks for entrepreneurs. And I love introducing really my tribe to a lot of folks because there's so many people that have so much knowledge, and today is no different. And I'm just super excited this Thursday. What is it? April. I said April, August 12th, to introduce to you one of my new friends. We had a chance to connect, and I loved her. We met her, and she was wearing a giant Metallica shirt. Trust me, that's my peeps right there. I was very excited to see that. But she's got 16 years of experience in the coaching profession. And she's not just a coach, she's actually a fearless living coach and mentor and speaker. And she talks about stuff that most people don't want to talk about, which is fear and how do you get unstuck and where does it show up. And in addition to that, she's also an expert in a few other topics, whether it's confidence, accountability, communications, negotiation, agreements, authenticity, and more. And so I'm just super excited to have a real candid conversation with my good friend, Debbie Ternes. Am I saying that correct?
Ternes. Yep.
Ternes. Okay, great. Awesome. Sometimes I butcher those. But we a great opportunity to connect. And I just love people's stories. That's one of my favorite things. And I know you come from a family of self-employed folks and have some great stories to share about that. So we'd love to hear about how you got started in entrepreneurialism and your background and how it led you to being where you are right now.
Yeah. So I was born into it. So that was wonderful. In 1931, my grandfather started an office equipment and supply store, and it was in downtown Petaluma. And I live in a small community, and it was actually called Ternes Drive-In Office Equipment because he literally had a drive-up window where you could pass your office machines through to submit, send them to the shop for repair. So you drive through, pass your machine, go around the back of the building, turn around and go out. So he was a little bit ahead of his time.
I would say so. And you still live in Petaluma, so you've kind
I
of kept
do.
that tradition. So
Yes.
tell us how you picked your modality of fearless coaching, because I mean, that's something most people don't want to face into their fears, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a scary thing, right? I I was actually in an unhealthy relationship, unhealthy marriage, let's just say that, and I started watching a TV show called Starting Over, and it was a group of women who would go to a house together, and they had two life coaches working with them. So I loved the coaches who were on there. I loved the work that they were doing with these women to demonstrate like how fear showed up and what you can do, not just by like journaling or like your normal self-help kind of things, but actually like physical exercises that inspired you to look at how fear showed up in a very different way. Things like, we talk about we carry a lot of baggage, right? So they literally would have these women put bricks labeled with whatever their fear was, like in a backpack, in suitcases, and then they would have them walk around all day carrying all of that weight. So it was a physical like manifestation of what that looked like and how that shows up, because I don't think oftentimes we have that physical or visual experience of what that really looks like. So I loved all the work that they were doing. So I read their books, and I went to a Fearless Foundation workshop in Denver. And I'm going to tell you, I was 40 years old, and it was the first time I had ever traveled alone. And so that in and of itself was kind of um, like my first big step in choosing me and showing up for myself. And so that's how it all started. I went to a workshop. I went to another workshop. I started working with the Fearless Living Coach, and I was really inspired by the work, and I wanted to help other people have those same kinds of transformations. and to be able to see, like, how does fear show up, where does it show up, and what do you do with it, right? Because that's the other thing. Okay, great, now I know, what do I do? But really to be able to learn how to use the skills and the tools to work through it.
And you were saying it shows up in all kinds of different ways. You gave an example of overeating, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could talk a little bit about, oh, I don't have any fears. What do you think? What are we seeing that we aren't seeing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So they could be things like you said, overeating, oversleeping, withdrawal, right? It could be like how you respond or react to certain things. It shows up in behaviors like if you get in a situation where you're caught off guard, maybe you shut down, or maybe you over explain yourself, right? Or you go into hyper explanation mode because you want to make sure that you're being seen and heard and understood. You don't want to be misunderstood, because that's really important for a lot of people, to be acknowledged and validated, right? Whether it's something good or bad, right? We want to be seen and heard, and to feel valued. Other things might be oversharing. That's a definite fear response, right? Um, and that shows up in relationships, right? Say you're dating someone new, right? You like overshare all of the things because you want a connection, right? The fear of not connecting. And so that shows up that way.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
it's a pretty amazing, like, when you start breaking things down and really looking at how that shows up. It's fascinating.
It is really fascinating. And for those of you who are watching us live, you're welcome to put questions. You can just literally put them in the comments and we can see them here on the studio. So feel free to do that. Then you also talked a little bit about how, there's things that will trigger us. So we have this fear sort of that we not even aware sometimes. We have a fear response, which shows up in weird ways. And then I can relate to being triggered by something people say. So let's talk a little bit about those trigger statements and how do those show up, and what are our response? Like, we get all mad. We don't even know why. I mean, I'd love to have
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? I know I shared with you earlier, when somebody says, my bad to me, literally, like that makes my head want to explode, because it's like, if you mess up, right? People just want to, like, maybe skirt over it, or they don't want to look at taking responsibility, or maybe making it right, or renegotiating an agreement. Something else that 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 for me personally is kind of a trigger statement is, well, it's a question actually, like, are you going to do such and such, or what? Like, that puts you on the it can put you on the defense, right? And then for me, I start thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong, and how do I make it right? And it forces what happens for me is I start scrambling for, like, the answers. Am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? What's the right answer? Like, and that's where like, I get all tripped up. And so knowing that those two things specifically are really helpful for me in, like, group dynamics or working in a team, because I can say to somebody, I just want you to know that this statement or that statement, it doesn't work for me. Can we say it differently? Or, let's figure out a way to make that work in a more productive way. Because, I want to show up as my best self. People want to show up really healthy and strong, and people love to help. And so how is it we can create those environments that feel really good?
That's a really good point. And I feel like sometimes trigger statements are different depending on your gender too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like it when, my spouse or something will say to me, hey, how are you feeling today? If I do it to him, he's like, there's nothing wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. It's different.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Like, it really is different for everybody. And I think what's really important is for us to pay attention to what happens when you hear, like, what happens in your body, like, what wants to come out of your mouth when somebody says something that really triggers you. And those are the key indicators of knowing that maybe there's a little bit of fear in there.
Yeah. So if you're triggered, that is an indication that there's some fear. Got it.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And it
Now,
could be lots of different things.
like what?
So it could be like the fear of being judged, not accepted. Like I said, like the fear of having done something wrong, um, the fear of, not being good enough. That shows up a lot for people as well. And it shows up very differently.
I agree. And then, yeah, that's really interesting. And you're kind of one of my kindred spirits because we talk about a lot of the same things, even though I have nothing to do with like real coaching. I just coach people that I work with in sales and what I do. But one of my favorite subjects are two of them. And there were the two that you hit too, which is one is confidence. And then the second one is accountability. And I'd love to hit the accountability because especially if someone's self-employed, there's no paycheck around somebody's neck making them do anything. So it's easy to go watch TV or do what you're not supposed to do because what's easy to do is easy not to do. So how do we get accountability for ourselves? Because sometimes we got to be our own worst boss and learn to kick our own butts.
Yes. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like to do is set up specific appointments with myself to do specific tasks. So if it's time to do sales calls, I'll set up a 2-hour block of time to do that task. Sometimes maybe it's even 30 minutes to do a different task. It really just depends. Sometimes I'll literally set a timer so that I stay in my chair in order to get things done. Because I do my best work when I'm prepared for something. So if I have a deadline for something, my best work really is done when I have time to go through it and do it at a pace that works for me rather than waiting to be, butted up against a deadline, right? That's not my best work. And I think knowing how we do our best work is really a supportive accountability tool. And knowing that you can set up the framework that works for you. Get an accountability partner, right? A great accountability partner is not your friend, right? There's somebody who is maybe in the same industry that you're in or has the same value system that you have, and somebody who's going to have the courage to ask you the hard questions. Our friends want us to be happy. They want to see us succeed, but they're not necessarily going to hold our feet to the fire in the way somebody else might do for us. So I think that's really important as well. I think checklists are a wonderful accountability tool because it's visual. And I don't know about you, but I love crossing stuff off the list because it makes me feel like I've accomplished things. So lists are great. To-do lists are great. But really the having an accountability partner that you check in regularly with is one of the biggest tools that I like to use as a hack and also recommend to clients.
So with the list, okay, so my list, because I don't have a personal assistant. So if anyone listening lives near Sunnyvale, I need a personal assistant. And I do W-2. But I mean, my to-do list is like pages and pages. So how would you manage that? And some of it's like, yeah, nice to do. Some of it's,
Yeah.
like in this lifetime, perhaps. I mean, anyway. So how do you recommend people organize that? Because that can just be like a laundry list. You're like, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
most definitely. Most definitely. So what I do is I write 2 things down that need to get done. That's it.
For the
And I have,
day, for the
well, even so at night before I clean off my desk, set my calendar up for the next day, right? I write the top 2 things that I need to get done the next day. Now I do have, like you said, the other list, right? The list of things that need to get done, but I write down 2 things. The theory is, and I read this in a book, the theory is if you have 2 things written on your list, those 2 things will absolutely get done. If you have 3 things on the list, it's likely that 3 will get done, but most likely only 2. If you have 5 or more things written on your list, nothing will be complete because it can be overwhelming, right? Visually, it just keeps you distracted. When you see those other things on the list, your mind might be focusing on, oh, but I got that other thing. Maybe I'll just jump over here and do that. So sometimes what I do, I'm just going to grab a piece of paper because sometimes what I do is I'll write my list of 2 things and then I'll literally just like write my other 10 things, but I'll fold the paper up so those things are covered up.
It's good. That's good.
I mean, it's super simple, right? It's just one of those things like, oh, how can I play the game with myself so I get things done? Right. And it works because I'm not distracted by all the other 15 things or the buzzer going off on the dryer or the dishwasher needing to be started, or the mailman just came. I got to go see what came in the mail today,
Because everyone's ordering on Amazon and
Yes.
we don't even remember what we ordered, where it's like Christmas every day. Yeah.
Yes.
So funny. So with along that lines of like accountability, we're kindred spirits on this one too, because I'm a freak show about making my bed every day. I mean, you walk in my room, it's like somebody said, do real people live here? Because it looks like a hotel sometimes. Because I don't have, now if you open up a drawer, there might be a bunch of junk in there. But like for me to work, I can't have anything out. Like, and I get way more done. So if my desk has a bunch of papers, speak to that because that's interesting. Like those are the small habits and things that, add up to success. And that goes along with the accountability, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I am exactly like you. Like I love my bedroom to be, I make my bed every day. My bedroom also looks like a hotel room. I do have personal things like, pictures and things. So it makes it more personal. But when I walk in there, it just feels good. Right. And if we walk into our offices or sit down at our desks and it feels good, we're going to want to sit there. And so I really encourage people to clean your desk off every night before you get up and leave your office or your workspace so that it's welcoming when you sit down the next day. I don't like the papers either. I will be transparent. I have a pile, but I can't see it. I have reminders. I mean, you can see my desk in the background, right? I have signs and I have pictures and I have medals from my runs that I've done. So I feel good about when I sit down at my desk. And it does keep me accountable. And it feels good to sit here. Now there are days that I'm tired of sitting in the same space and I'll go sit at the dining room table. But again, my dining room table, it's cleaned off. I have, a beautiful orchid in the middle of it. So I just move that to the side. So creating space that feels really good. It just feels good. It feels nice to sit down and work in an area that's cleaned off and feels good and personal as well. I think that's important.
And much more productive. I couldn't agree with you more. And on that same vein, before we leave accountability, because whether you're self-employed, many of us are working from home, so you got to really be accountable. Just otherwise, you're not going to get paid anymore from your job. So now, and it's easy, right? Like it took me a while to be able to work from home, and I've been working from home now for like 15 years. But I know that it was hard for my husband. He was like, "Oh, there's my, bass. Maybe I'll play the bass for a hot second, and an hour will go by. Oops, So I and you do this too. It's so funny. We are like so much alike. It's crazy. So I started some things with our team and whatnot, where we do like accountability call parties. And to this day, they're on Zoom. We all just come on and we make phone calls. I've done this, like I told you, with my accounting, which I lost my, Zoom workout partner on Saturdays to do accounting. So I haven't done it since November. Okay. So let's be totally transparent here. I know you're really into that too. Like I plug into our call party because otherwise I won't do my sales calls. You know what I mean? I just won't. So I need that too. Talk about how powerful that could be, doing these virtual work together parties.
I love virtual work together parties because, we're all there, right? We get to see somebody's face, right? We might want to, let's just face it, right? We have a million ideas as entrepreneurs, right? A million ideas, right? And it's so nice to be able to sit in a virtual space and to be able to say, hey, so-and-so, what do you think of this? Can we just, maybe you have a little breakout room and like you chit chat or you share your ideas and get some feedback. It's really helpful to have that. And the community piece that goes along with that, right? The camaraderie, I just want to go back really quick to like the desk issue, right? Like cleaning your desks off. I worked in corporate for 15 years and I cleaned my desk off every day. If I went on vacation and I came back, I could tell you someone touched my stuff. right? I know if someone sat at my desk, they touched my pens, they moved my monitor, you know, I was very meticulous about that. It's just so funny. But back to the co-working, right? They have lots of in-person co-working, right, for people who um, work in small teams, and that's really helpful too. You know, it's just having a space like downtown, just to be sitting in the energy of other people. That's also feels really good and inspiring and uplifting, and that's kind of an amazing situation to be able to have as well.
I forgot to look at our comments, but I love Jeannie Lyons. She's awesome. She said, yes, it can be a trap to have too many things on a list. I want to start with the easiest. Folding the paper is brilliant. So I want to make sure I acknowledge, Jeannie for watching live all the time. She's awesome. And I just appreciate that too. So you talked about, community, and that's a huge thing. And especially now when all of us are working from home, and who knows, we might be on another lockdown. I mean, we don't know what the future is, right? So
Yeah.
into winter here. So you spend a lot of time on community and authenticity and developing friendships. And, so maybe you could speak a little bit to that as well, because I think that's now more than ever, having that friendship, that community is really, really important.
Yeah. Friendship's always been something that it's a high value for me.
Me too.
Really quality, good friends, right? The people who will call you out on your crap and in a kind and loving way, right? That's the component that's really important for me as well. I'm really sensitive. And so if I mess up, I do want to know. And to have friends that can say, hey, look, you really hurt my feelings when you did XYZ. It really keeps the door open to having those difficult conversations that nurture friendships, that deepen friendships, and that give you the courage to have those conversations yourself in other relationships, at work, in your personal life, with your family, with your kids, with your friends. And being able to, I know that making friends can be difficult for some people. I live in the same town I grew up in. My boyfriend Ben laughs. He's like, it doesn't matter where we go, somebody there, right? And it's different for me to have the understanding of, like, if you move around a lot, how challenging that can be. And so being able to create new friendships, meet new people is really important. One of the statistics that I share when I talk about authentic friendships is it takes 20 to 40 hours to create a basic friendship, right? Like, that's a lot of time. So it's easy to see how we make friends when we go to work, right? We're spending a lot of time with people. We're having lunch with them, or having coffee, or in meetings with them, or we sit next to them. And when we have that understanding, it takes that much time, then you can shift more intentionality in creating friendships with people who you kind of resonate with, right? When you're meeting new people, and putting more intentionality. And the same goes for long-term friendships. I have one friend, Lisa, we met when we were 17 years old at work. And so we've been friends for, I'm just going to say it out loud, over 40 years. And she lives in Arizona. I live in California. We have a standing appointment on the calendar on Tuesday afternoons at 3:30. And we talk on the phone every week to maintain our friendship and our connection. So it's important to if friendship is a high value thing for you, and it's something that's important for you, putting attention on it and being intentional is the key thing to keep those things going, and to stay connected, and to really fill your cup in that area if it's important.
And I agree. We did a houseboat one year for my birthday, and I've been with my husband for 22 years, and I had known him the least amount of the people on the houseboat. So like every person on there I'd known longer than 22 years. It was bizarre. So I hear you, and I don't think that I try to kind of just keep gathering friends, right? Like, I don't want to lose any of them. I just want to keep gathering. So it's a lot of fun. So thanks for sharing that. I also want to just hit on a little bit of that authenticity, because sometimes because what you see is what you get with me. Like I do a lot of public speaking and things like that. And they're like, you're exactly the same on stage as off stage, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Like my superhero power, I think, is like, you know exactly where you stand. But sometimes, it can come across a little bit brash because, you're so authentic. You say what you think without a filter sometimes. So can you address tips for that or anything? Because that's
yeah, definitely. I wish I could remember this quote offhand, but it said that, being honest, there has to be an element of kindness in your honesty, because without that, it's brutality, right? So having somebody's heart and mind, and knowing, if you've been friends for a long time, you know where their sensitivity level is, and having the awareness and making sure that we're doing it with love and kindness is really important when we value the friendship. And I know that some people say, oh, you're too sensitive and we can't say, what's on our mind, blah, blah, blah. I think you can say what's on your mind, and doing it with kindness and grace, and thinking about the person that you're actually saying it to is really critical in having those really authentic relationships. I think there is always a way to be honest and authentic and transparent, and having kindness be at the top of the list when you're delivering your message. Sometimes, believe me, I don't always do it, but there are times you say something, you say it wrong. It's okay to say, whoa, like that came out totally wrong. Let me rephrase that. Right? So really calling out, hey, like I messed that up. Let me say it differently. I think that that's part of being authentic as well, Kai, is being able to say, hey, I'm scared to have this conversation. This conversation is going to be difficult, or I messed that up. Will you forgive me? And can we start over? Can we have this conversation maybe later, right? It may not be the right time, right? So timing is an important thing as well. It really is about the thoughtfulness and the kindness, and where the priority is, like what's important.
Yeah, because I always say, like, as a leader, right? Sometimes we have to make unpopular decisions. And if you make a mistake, people will forgive you if you did it out of a place of sincerity, out of a place of service, because it's inevitable you're going to mess up. So I always just say, you love me now, but I'll probably mess up. And you may not like me for a hot minute from time to time, because that's how it works, right? I'm not everybody's cup of tea either. So I think
Right.
For women in that people pleasing mode, sometimes it's hard to be like, "Ooh, they don't like me." It's not they don't like you. It's just you didn't connect with them. They're not your cup of tea, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
It's totally okay.
absolutely.
So I know we could go on and on, because I wanted to get to hard conversations and renegotiation. So we'll have to have you back on the show. But I know you have some incredible ways for people to engage with you, whether it's your Authentic Friendship Facebook group, or whether it's a virtual co-working program that you've got. So if somebody said, you know what, I really like Debbie, I'd like to learn more, how would they connect with you? What's the best way? And I'll put it in the chat so people have access to that. What is the best way to engage with you and continue the conversation or learn more?
Yeah, I would love a phone call. So let me give you my phone number real quick.
Sure.
It's 707-477-8015. You can always visit my website. It's on the screen, debbieternes.com. Or you can shoot me an email. You ready for that?
Yep.
All right. It's my name, Debbie Ternes. And then the letters cflc@gmail.com.
And they
I know people are going to wonder what's CFLC. It's Certified Fearless Living Coach.
Cute. So for those of you who can't see the chat, there is Debbie's phone number, because some of you are watching on YouTube. I know that. And then for the other of you, there's her email address, and of course her website's on her screen there. So, well, that was a lot of fun, and appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
for everybody else, we appreciate you coming to the 33rd episode. Isn't that crazy? 33rd episode of On the Fly with Kai, where we bring to you every single week on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific and all time zones in between. A great person that I personally have met, that I know, that I recommend, that I think can bring some value to those entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs out there that want to take a shortcut, right? That's the hack, and give you some great tips and tricks. And I think we delivered today on that. So thank you again, Debbie. We appreciate you being on the show. And for everyone else, we'll see you here next Thursday, and looking forward to it. With that, take care, take charge, and we'll see you guys over the top. Bye-bye.